Before we begin, I invite you to gently close your ears and focus on what remains when all external sounds fade away. It's like sitting in a quiet room, and after a while, you notice a subtle ringing or hum beneath the silence. If you listen closely, you'll start to experience this soft, constant presence, something that feels like the very fabric of reality itself. In quantum physics, it's said that everything is connected at the most fundamental level, and that everything we see is just a manifestation of deeper, unseen energy. What you are hearing, or rather feeling, is that same energy, that same field of potential. This subtle ringing is what we call the sound of silence. It's not just an abstract concept or some external force. It's the very essence of you. Everything we discuss in this session and the ones to come will be about this sound of silence. It is not something separate or different from you. It is you. This exploration is about realizing that the sound of silence is your own inner being, your most fundamental nature, the stillness from which all life arises. You are that, the very presence behind everything. I understand that everything around us is connected to space in one way or another. When we observe the space between two objects, we notice that there's a continuous gap that we can measure or perceive. For instance, when we look at an atom or observe subatomic particles, we realize there is space between them. But the real question is, who is observing this space? Who is looking at the dots, such as protons, neutrons, and electrons, which are simply points or locations within a greater space? Essentially, these are just 3 points, and if we zoom in further, we'll find more dots within them, each one existing with more space in between. This process of zooming in or out seems to have no end. As we continue observing smaller or larger scales, we keep finding endless space. This concept of continuous space applies both when zooming into the smallest elements and when zooming out to the largest structures of the universe. Every time we zoom in or zoom out, we are merely observing more and more layers of space. The more we look, the more we realize that space is infinite, and as we continue this observation, we'll always find new dimensions or aspects of space. Therefore, the question arises, who is observing all these things, these dots, and the spaces between them? This observer is the very essence of perception we're talking about, the awareness that is beyond the physical objects we see. The instruments we create to observe these phenomena will never give us the final answer, because no matter how sophisticated they are, they only show us more observations that keep leading to more unknowns. This observation continues endlessly as long as we keep exploring the world of physical forms and spaces. Now, Vedanta suggests that we can look at whatever we want, study every object and system we can think of, but what does it all really amount to? When we observe these phenomena, be it a small gap between atoms or the larger gaps between planets, what we are really doing is observing. It's not just about what we see, but about who is seeing it, who is doing the observing. The observer is what matters, the one whose perception is shaping the experience. This brings us to the notion of a unique and pure perceptive essence that exists behind all observations. Unique here means formless and infinite. It is not something that can be easily conceptualized because it transcends all form. The word unique must be understood deeply because it represents the source of everything. If something is truly unique, it means it cannot be divided, it cannot have a counterpart, it is infinite, all-encompassing and self-contained. This essence, this awareness or consciousness, is the very basis of existence. Without consciousness, there would be no meaning to anything. If the entire universe existed, but there was no conscious being to observe or experience it, then the very idea of existence would be meaningless. Nothing would matter in the absence of consciousness. In such a state, there would be no thoughts, feelings, or experiences, no one to perceive, no one to listen. In that scenario, existence and non-existence would be indistinguishable. It is consciousness that gives meaning to everything. This perceptive essence is not something external. It is you, it is me. I am not just an individual entity, but this essence itself. I am both the formless and the conscious essence. The very essence that is responsible for all perception is the same as the awareness that I experience. I am not just existence, but I am also consciousness. Chit. In some teachings, this is described as Sat Chit Anand, but that description can be misleading. The word Anand suggests happiness, which leads people to associate it with a state of bliss or joy. However, if we delve into the teachings more carefully, we find that the term Anantam is used instead, which means endless or infinite. So when we say Sat Chit Anantam, we are describing something that is beyond form, beyond limitation. It's not a question of freeing myself from some form, because in my true nature I am already free from all forms. I do not need to do anything to achieve this freedom. By nature I am already free from any form, any boundary. However, the experience of this freedom is obscured by the creation of an instrument within me. This instrument, which can take any form, allows me to experience the world in a limited way. The instrument is the body, or any form that appears to have boundaries. But the real truth is that it is the formless essence experiencing through that form. When I experience something, I tend to identify myself with the form, but in reality I am formless. For example, if I feel something touch my hand, I say that it touched me, but I am not just the body through which that touch is experienced. The sensation of touch, too, is a form, though subtle. It's an object, and I am aware of it. The sensation is a form of experience, and the brain, as the instrument of experience, plays its part in processing this feeling. However, as soon as this experience happens, I tend to identify myself as limited, and this is where the error lies. The mistake comes from identifying myself with the body, the instrument. The body is like a tool through which I observe the world, and without it I would not have any sensory experience. But the mistake is in thinking that the body defines me. Just like space, which is infinite, I too am like space, limitless and all-pervading. An instrument is created within me, and it operates because of the software, the consciousness that exists within. This consciousness is the true essence of everything, and the forms I experience are just temporary expressions of this essence. The moment I realize that I am not the form, that I am the formless consciousness, I begin to see the truth of who I truly am. I am not limited by the body or by any form. I am the vast, infinite awareness that is beyond all limitations.